Let me pull up this story from the Daily Beast. This is a good example. Joe Rogan says it's a fact that January 6th was a false flag, cites Ray Epps. Now, that's a misleading headline if I've ever seen one, but of course, that's the Daily Beast. If you are someone who only consumes garbage nonsense like the Daily Beast, you might think Joe Rogan's this crazy Alex Jones guy. However, fortunately for Joe Rogan, he's like one of the most famous people on the planet, and many of his fans know who he really is, so these smears, they don't go very far. But let me read this for you. They say, wildly popular podcaster Joe Rogan once again pushed the baseless conspiracy theory. I love that the January 6th Capitol insurrection was a false flag orchestrated by the federal government, adding that pro-Trump rioter Ray Epps clearly instigated the attack. Now, hold on there a minute. Ray Epps is on camera the night before and the day of telling people to go to the Capitol and go in the building. He's then seen whispering into someone's ear, and he's on the front line as the people breach the Capitol grounds. Curious. They didn't go after him. The feds didn't go after him. He was protected by the media, defended by the media. And even now, they're trying to obfuscate what he did. It's fascinating, isn't it? Earlier this month, Epps sued Fox News for defaming him. This we know. And in that lawsuit, we're hearing that Epps may actually be facing criminal charges. They go on to mention that Rogan's got a contract with Spotify, blah, blah, blah. Rogan said the intelligence community had a vested interest in this going sideways, adding that if somebody wanted to disparage a political party or to maybe have some sort of justification for getting some influential person like Trump offline, that would be the way they would do it. And Joe Rogan is completely correct. He was talking to Jim Gaffigan, who did not know anything about this. I got to tell you, when I listen to Joe Rogan talk to Jim Gaffigan, I'm a political guy. Like, I sit here, I read all this news. I am just like shaking, wanting to talk to these guys.
You should get Gaffigan on the show
and be like, ask me any question and I will answer it. And I will show you all the sources. I will pull them up one at a time. And you can, by all means, not believe the Guardian or NPR, the New York Times. Just, you got to have some standard. Do you believe these outlets or not? Do you believe Politico or not? Okay, well, that's what we're basing this off of. But Jim doesn't know anything. Yeah. He doesn't know anything about it. So what did Joe Rogan really say? He said they never went after Ray Epps. He's seen on camera instigating this stuff. Makes you wonder. And now we know what he said was a fact is that there were guys there who are intelligence assets encouraging people, or I should say some kind of government agent or law enforcement. This is not controversial. This is confirmed.
Yeah.
They're admitted to doing it, to going, let's go. Hey, go, and pushing people towards the Capitol.
Oh, is that admitted that agents pushed people towards the Capitol? And said
there's body camera footage of people associated with law enforcement. I'd have to pull this stuff up. I'm going to be very careful here because I want to make sure we're getting it right. Yeah. But they're saying things like go. When questioned, I think it was the FBI said we cannot answer. Were there people involved at all?
Yeah. They pled the fifth basically, and I did see that clip, and Joe Rogan cited Epps, and he cited the FBI director pleading the fifth. But yeah, it was like early on. There was like very early on after Jan 6, there was a New York Times article, and it was like federal agent describes his experience on Jan 6. So it's long been acknowledged that there were federal agents in Jan 6. I think the strongest argument for false flag though is the pipe bomb, which apparently they have footage of like the guy who put it there, and they apparently know where he lives too. They've like I forget where I heard this, but they know his address, and yet they have not prosecuted him or explained whether it was a pipe bomb or not. You know what I mean? It doesn't look like they've investigated what that was.
Well, that's scandalous because that guy's like
Thomas Massey has been posting about this, and that is kind of piece of, in my opinion, that's like the most compelling evidence.
Because the bombs that were placed around the Capitol heighten the entire situation to such a level that you might be able to justify bringing in federal troops or detaining people without charge or trial.
Jim Gaffigan makes a good question though. He's like, why didn't Trump call anybody in? Yeah. Why didn't Trump just say, get law enforcement down there right now? I think it's fair to say that Trump was bumbling quite a bit. I don't think Trump had any intention on anyone going into the Capitol. I think he genuinely had no idea what was going on. And I don't mean that he didn't know there were people storming the Capitol on one side and going in the other. I'm saying he did not comprehend the situation.
Well, you've read, though, that apparently after his speech, he told Secret Service to drive him to the Capitol. And they said, no, we're taking you.
Pretty sure that was a fake story.
Oh, was that a fake story?
Because they claimed that Trump attacked the driver.
Well, yeah, it was exaggerated that he attacked the driver. But what I gathered from that was like, if Trump did actually want to go to the Capitol and talk to these guys, could have been a totally different outcome. If Trump was there and he was like, hey guys, we want to do this peacefully, as he was
Trump
saying
was still
in his
speaking
speech.
when they were breaching the Capitol grounds.
Oh, okay.
Right.
But either way, if he had gotten there, he could have ended it. So it's weird that Secret Service would say, no, we're not letting you go. And it's weird that Trump couldn't override that with just a direct order also. So,
Yeah, I got personal criticisms. I mean, I wasn't the president. President had a hell of a job during COVID, man. But the way he didn't send in federal troops during the riots of 2020.
President did a hell of a job during COVID.
Well, no.
You think Operation Warp Speed was good?
No, I don't think he did a good job. I mean, the president has a hell of a job during something
okay.
like that is what I mean. And so I can't talk too much shit about him and like be like, well, if I was there, I would have this and that. Cause like backseat driving, hindsight's 2020, but he didn't send in the troops day one of the 2020 insurrections, whatever the hell, these street riots that broke out after the George Floyd death. I would told Tim the next day, like, where are the fucking National Guard? What are we waiting for? This is going to spread out of control. This is like a fire burning right now. And it did. 2 days later, the city's starting to get burned down. And I'm like, where's the president of the United States, the armed chief of our military commander? Like, and I think he was so afraid of being called a fascist, he didn't want to bring the troops in. And then the same. Yeah. So where were the troops on January 6th?
I want to make sure we get this in the segment. This is an article from WLOS.com. An FBI informant embedded within the Proud Boys on January 6th, identified in the record only by the name Aaron, testified for the defense. The witness said he was not aware of any plans by the Proud Boys to invade the U.S. Capitol building. So that's one simple example. We then have this. This is a filing. This is a defense writing. The DOJ recently disclosed involvement of undercover officers and informants from other agencies aside from the FBI and D.C. Metro Police. At least 40 undercover informants. So that was one of the big stories. Wow. There were another couple of videos that came out. And you guys should definitely fact check me on this one. It is hard to do because most of the corporate press ignores this stuff. But there were a few videos from law enforcement who were shouting things like, I think the video in question was, let's go, keep going, or something like that.
Well, that's fascinating because if that's true, then that's kind of the crux of the whole false flag claim. So if that's true, then Joe Rogan was in fact correct.
Well, no. The question, Joe Rogan asked whether or not the possibility of a false flag could be and whether it made sense. And it certainly does make sense. They used the insurrection thing for 2 years, just screaming nonstop over and over again on TV that it was an insurrection. And now the speculation is they'll try to use this to get Trump removed from the ballot. So certainly there was a benefit to all of this. They deleted Trump's tweets calling for peace. They deleted Trump's Facebook posts where he was saying, I don't know if they deleted, they suspended him. Trump had said things like, everybody go home. We respect law enforcement. They shuffle that away and then claim he was calling for violence.
If you're a commander and you've got your capital is under siege by its own civilians, like, and they're starting a riot or they're starting a thing, like, you've got a few options. You can bring out the guns and try and turn them down. That you can beg them to stop, which doesn't really work against large crowds, or you can insert active duty officers into the crowd to break it up. Agents to break it up from inside. That's probably the smartest method.
Joe Rogan points out the WTO protests in Seattle. They called the Battle for Seattle. They had agent provocateurs there. We've seen videos. There's a lot of speculation all the time about agent provocateurs. There was one story in Canada where protesters had military-style boots, started acting violently. The left has argued this for a long time. They conveniently forget the possibility when it comes to the right. Why? They're happy it happened. You had the Gravel Institute tweeting in support of January 6th, except for the fact that it was right-wing. They actually tweeted that it was good what happened. It was just bad that it was conservatives or right-wingers that were doing it. They like it. When it comes to agent provocateurs, the left will tell you to your face the government stages fake activists to incite violence for the purpose of discrediting protest movements. And then when the right is protesting, the left says, I have no idea what you're talking about. And here you are.
Yeah. You can make the same argument for election fraud as well.
Yep.
Yeah, we need people to stand up for the rights of the people you don't agree with. Like, if you see, maybe it's a big ask, but if you see your political opponents under duress and they're being treated poorly or illegally, you've got to stand up for those people.
Yeah, you need to stand on principle as opposed to
a certain degree. To a certain degree.
There is no history. There's no evidence of that happening from either side, but definitely from the Democrats for the past 15, 20 years.
And that's why I say to a certain degree, because perhaps when the country is unified, but there's partisan bickering, you get angry when the DOJ is weaponized against a political group. You say, hey, guys, you can't do that. Unfortunately, right now, we're in something substantially deeper than that. And now the question is, when they're trying to destroy you, do you provide them with your support?
Yeah, it's the first time in my life I've ever been in a situation like where they were in the 50s, where they were really afraid the communists were going to take over the country. So they were like what was it, J. Edgar Hoover's blacklist or whatever? He like started blacklisting all these people that had communist ties, and people were losing their jobs and their careers. And like, maybe if they hadn't done that, we would have become a communist nation. So I don't know.
Do you know that communists are excluded from the Civil Rights Act?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I did know that.
This is still true to this day. And I got questions about the legal merits of that. It's in the law. And it's not, I do not believe it's been adjudicated. So I wonder what would happen if you were just like, no communists allowed.
This is like, I don't have any kind of evidence. This is just my impression. But in the 50s and the Red Scare and stuff, and I really need to go and do more reading about like what it was actually like. But it really seemed like the people that were really opposed to communism in the 50s and 60s, it seemed like they really understood that the left, the international left, has a fundamental different understanding of the world. I was listening to this book called this audiobook called Explaining Postmodernism by Stephen Hicks. And one of the things that he talks about is the way that the left doesn't have the same kind of foundation that the right does. And it's about, liberalism versus authoritarianism. And you're not going to be able to find common ground with people that have a fundamental different understanding of what the truth is or what reality is. And if there is no truth, then it's fine to use ad hominems and call everybody Nazis and stuff. And we're seeing the effects of that now. It's been 20 or 30 years 30 or 40 years now, actually, that the left has called everybody on the right a Nazi, and every president's a Nazi, and it always goes to the absolute worst, where, there's a lot of people in America now that aren't, unfortunately, that are not so afraid of the word of being called a racist anymore. They're just like, well, you call everybody that, you call everybody Nazi, you call everybody, so it doesn't matter. And that's something that we have to deal with. And I don't see how we can deal with the struggles that we're having as a country if we can't even agree on what the philosophy that the United States is founded on.
But hold on, because what you're giving credit to the people in the 1950s, and you're kind of saying, well, they were actually good intention and they were actually against communists and pro-freedom.
I'm only saying that maybe they understood better than the average person now. I'm not trying to give them undue credit.
But then you talk about the difference in ideology, which is one is collectivism, one is individualism. And I agree, I'm a big individualist. But when you go on this like Red Scare campaign, you're immediately dissolving one of the crucial things of individualism, which is like innocent till proven guilty.
Yes, one of the flaws, or one of the greatest challenges that liberalism has, is liberalism accepts the arguments of opposing viewpoints as if they are coming from liberals. Right, so if you enter the disagreement expecting the person you're having a debate with to be honest, but they are not going to be honest, you can never have a fair exchange. So that's one of the things that liberals have to figure out how to deal with. And that's why liberals, and that's why the communists say liberals always choose fascists over communists, because the only way that you can fight authoritarians is with authoritarianism.
Right, but then you become like the monster you're trying to fight. Like it's what Tim said with like the original purpose of like these international bodies, and then the grandchildren just forget what the purpose was. Like, look at what the FBI is now. Look at what the CIA is now.
Well, yeah,
like,
but
how could you say that
they were always that way?
Yeah, and if you look at J. Edgar Hoover, they were always that way. So right. I just don't think there's any credence to this argument of like we need to embrace authoritarianism to get rid of communists.
No, I'm not. I didn't say that we need to embrace. I didn't say we need to embrace it, but I'm saying that the current problem that we have is that liberalism doesn't have a
mechanism for
to deal with.
I think what it is that Jefferson quote
but it does,
of like
though,
the price of liberty
and it's
is eternal
only
vigilance.
supporting liberalism and not supporting other ideologies.
Fair enough, but the problem that we're experiencing now is authoritarians lie to liberals, shit libs, bad liberals. They lie to shit libs, and shit libs believe them because what the authoritarians are telling the liberals sounds good.
But the tool then is education, and it's very difficult, obviously, especially with echo chambers. But to me, that's the only viable tool. And that was another Jefferson quote, something about educating the masses is like how to secure liberty.
A lot of that's with tone. because the data itself doesn't convince people
Tone,
you can do it with a good tone.
And another shout out to Dave Smith, because I think he does that extremely well.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.